One rainy night, in a city full of lights and despair, a man quietly broke into a small pharmacy, not out of greed, but because his 8-year-old daughter lay unconscious in a run-down rented room, burning with fever. He didn't have time to weigh the risks, to ask anyone for help. Police caught him still holding a bottle of fever medicine and a box of milk. The sentence came quickly: 5 years in prison for theft and obstructing law enforcement. No one asked why. No one looked into his motives. The news headline simply read, "Repeat offender incapable of rehabilitation." But in the cold prison on the city's southern edge, there was one guard who took the time to read the crumpled letter in the new inmate's pocket. And somewhere in a children's home, there was a little girl who still hid a photo of her father beneath her pillow every night. His name was Rafael Jimenez, 38 years old, once a pharmacy stock clerk at a small suburban hospital. One night in June, he was arrested while trying to take 3 boxes of Ventolin, an emergency asthma medication. The court file stated clearly intent to steal was evident. What the police didn't record was the moment Rafael broke down in tears after hearing the doctor say his daughter Ellie, age 7, might not survive another 48 hours without the medication. Rafael didn't argue. He didn't hire a lawyer. He didn't file for leniency. He only asked for one thing: to bring with him a drawing Ellie had made, scribbled with crayon, reading "Daddy is a superhero," with a flying dog tucked into his shirt pocket on the day of the trial. The judge said, "The court understands the defendant's situation, but the law is the law." The sentence: 5 years in prison, no parole. Behind bars, Rafael never asked for his sentence to be shortened. He didn't join behavior-based rehabilitation programs. He only made one request: to be allowed time in the yard every Saturday at the same hour. When asked why, he answered, "Because there's one creature in this world who's never forgotten me. And I don't want it to think I've forgotten it either." At first, no one believed him, but 2 months later, a dog did come. And from then on, it never missed a Saturday. The day Rafael was sentenced, it rained. Ellie, a little girl with braided hair and eyes bigger than her face, sat quietly on the wooden bench at the back of the courtroom. Beside her was Cooper, the golden brown dog Rafael had adopted from a rescue shelter back when Ellie was still in preschool. As the police led Rafael away, Ellie didn't cry, but Cooper barked, loudly, pulling his leash from her hand. Some said it was just animal instinct. But Rafael knew Cooper wasn't defending his owner. He was saying goodbye to a part of his own heart. After the trial, Ellie was placed in a children's shelter. Her mother had abandoned her over a year before. Rafael was not allowed to know where his daughter had been taken. His first request to visit was denied. His first letter was returned, stamped in red, "Recipient not identified." And Cooper. That afternoon, he escaped the yard Rafael had once built with his own hands. He left no tracks. Neighbors said they saw him heading south toward the dirt road that led out of town. No one knew where he went. No one searched. After all, he was just a dog and not anyone's legal property. But Rafael knew one thing for certain: Cooper would never stay in one place while the 2 beings he loved most were no longer in that home. From inside his cell, Rafael often had the same recurring dream: Ellie and Cooper playing in a yard. Ellie's laughter echoing as Cooper spun in circles and flopped over, pretending to be dead. He would call their names, but the dream always ended just before he reached them, fading like smoke into the wind. During his slow, measured walks across the prison yard, Rafael would whisper a sentence over and over again, like a message cast into silence. "My child, if I can't get to you, I just hope Cooper finds you first." It was a foggy Saturday morning, the wind sharp as needles, and Rafael was walking with his head down in yard 3, counting his steps. He no longer counted the days, only his breaths. long, steady breaths to hold on to the fading image of Ellie to keep the blank spaces in his memory from swallowing what little was left. Suddenly, there was a murmur, the hurried scrape of guard boots, and a voice crackled through the radio gate. There's a dog just sitting there, refusing to leave. Cooper, no one called him, no one fetched him, but he came. He didn't bark. He didn't run around. He didn't lick anyone's hands. He just sat facing the iron gate that led to the exercise yard. Those deep eyes didn't speak of wildness. They carried something that felt almost like memory. One of the guards moved to shoo him away, but another Joel, a middle-aged correctional officer, said, "Hold on. Let's see how inmate 1487 reacts." When Raphael looked up, his gaze froze, then softened. Cooper stood slowly, stretching up to rest his front paws against the fence, as if trying to say something. No barking, no frantic tail wagging, just a look, 5 seconds of eye contact. That was enough to bring back a feeling Raphael hadn't allowed himself since the day of his sentencing hope. And in that moment, Raphael did something no guard had ever seen from him. He fell to his knees, covered his face with both hands, and wept. Not from regret, not from pain, but because someone had traveled hundreds of kilometers just to say, "I'm still here. I haven't forgotten." According to internal protocol, any animal approaching a prison gate is to be immediately driven away. Security risk distraction facilitates smuggling, that's what the training manual said. But Joel Peterson, the evening shift warden, didn't consult the manual that day. He simply stood behind the glass, watching Raphael, the coldest inmate in Block L, curled over, trembling like a child left behind. Cooper was still there, resting his chin on the steel fence, as if all it would take was someone opening the door for him to walk back into the world of someone he loved. Joel stepped outside. He looked at the dog, then at Raphael. He didn't speak. He just quietly opened the side gate just wide enough for Cooper to slip into the small yard beside the patrol path. "Reason for the report?" a young guard asked. Joel shrugged, psychological relief for the inmate. "Reasonable, right?" Then he added softly, "Or maybe for me." Cooper didn't do much. He circled Raphael once, then laid down against his leg. No barking, no playing. Just steady breathing, the silent rhythm of two hearts that had once shared a home. Raphael reached out with a trembling hand, brushing Cooper's ear. "You really found me," he whispered, like asking if a miracle could be real. Joel stood a few meters away, gripping his inspection log tightly. He wasn't used to softness, but that day he didn't take notes. He just wrote a single line in his personal journal after the shift. Not all prisoners are alone. Some are still being waited for. Every Saturday afternoon, Cooper was led into the small courtyard, a privilege not listed in any official regulation. Joel didn't ask. Raphael didn't explain. But the guards began to notice this dog was not like other dogs. Raphael didn't whistle for him. He called with his eyes and the rhythm of his hands. He placed 2 old slippers side by side. Cooper would gently lie down in front of them, completely still, as if standing guard over the sleep of someone who had lost everything. When Raphael softly sang an old lullaby that Ellie used to love, Cooper would lower his head, ears drooping so still he seemed not to breathe. And especially when Raphael said a single word, Ellie Cooper would suddenly spring up and spin in 3 perfect circles. To others it looked strange, but Joel, watching from above, froze. "That was her game," Raphael murmured, catching Joel's gaze. "Every time I said her name, Cooper would spin 3 times and drop like he was dead. It made her laugh every night." He bowed his head and gently stroked the dog's back. "I didn't train him to perform. I trained him so Ellie would feel safe, no matter what happened." No one could understand how a dog could remember a routine that hadn't been repeated in over 2 years. Just as no one understood why every Saturday he arrived on time without ever being called. Cooper's behavior was never noted in any report. Raphael earned no rehabilitation points for dog training. But in that quiet prison yard, every small gesture from Cooper was a message not sent through the post, but carried by loyalty. Joel once wrote in his journal, "There are kinds of love that can't be taught. They're learned through silence." One Saturday afternoon, Cooper didn't show up as usual. Joel felt uneasy but assumed perhaps the dog had gotten lost or been stopped somewhere. After all, he was just a dog. But the next morning, a video began circulating online. Security footage from Youth Shelter Center No. 11 showed a small, shaggy dog walking with a slight tilt, crossing a busy road, dodging cars, and sitting down calmly at the center's gate, as if waiting for someone to open it. He didn't bark. He didn't leave. He simply looked up, staring into the courtyard, where a young girl was playing on a swing. The video had been taken by a driver who had stopped his car to avoid hitting the dog. He captured the moment when the girl, about 9 years old, suddenly turned around, her gaze locking onto the familiar brown eyes. The girl stood still. Cooper stood still. No one called out. No one moved. And yet something passed between them, like electricity, like memory, like a bond of family that had never truly been broken, stretching across the fence and into their hearts. The clip was only 34 seconds long, but within 48 hours it had reached 3 million views. The most liked comments were, "Sometimes love remembers the way better than reason." If you don't believe dogs have memory, just watch one wait 2 years for someone who never called its name. Inside the prison, Raphael knew nothing. He had no internet. But that afternoon, Cooper came again. And beneath the dust-streaked, smoke-scented fur, there was something different, something newer, as if he had just recovered a piece of memory Raphael thought was long lost. Joel greeted him with a different look this time. No longer the dog who always shows up on time, but the only messenger between two worlds, one where the father was imprisoned, and one where the child was still waiting. The following week, when Cooper returned to the prison gate, he brought something in his mouth. A piece of paper wrinkled, water-stained at the corners, with one edge chewed. But when Raphael saw it, he froze as if struck in the chest. On the paper was a crayon drawing a man in a green prison uniform, a little girl with braided hair, and a dog standing between them, all three beneath a large orange sun. At the bottom, in a child's wobbly handwriting, it read, "Dad, Ellie, Cooper." Not far apart anymore. Joel picked up the drawing with gloved hands, ready to send it for inspection. But Raphael whispered, "I know this drawing style. Ellie's drawn like this since she was 6. She always made me taller than I really am. Because she said, 'Daddy is the big tree where me and Cooper hide from the rain.'" Raphael took the drawing in both hands, lifting it like a treasure. Cooper lay at his feet, round eyes looking up as if awaiting a reaction. Raphael didn't cry, but his eyes turned red. His voice trembled. Where did you get this? Who gave it to you? Does Ellie still remember me?" There was no answer. Only the crumpled drawing intact in its meaning, and a single bite mark like the signature of a loyal heart. From that day on, Raphael folded the drawing and placed it in his chest pocket. Every night before sleeping, he would touch it once, as though touching the one part of his heart that still lived beyond the bars. The clip was only 34 seconds long, but within 48 hours, it had reached 3 million views. The most liked comments were, "Sometimes love remembers the way better than reason." If you don't believe dogs have memory, just watch one wait 2 years for someone who never called its name. Inside the prison, Raphael knew nothing. He had no internet. But that afternoon, Cooper came again. And beneath the dust-streaked, smoke-scented fur, there was something different, something newer. As if he had just recovered a piece of memory Raphael thought was long lost. Joel greeted him with a different look this time. No longer the dog who always shows up on time, but the only messenger between two worlds, one where the father was imprisoned, and one where the child was still waiting. The following week, when Cooper returned to the prison gate, he brought something in his mouth. A piece of paper wrinkled, water-stained at the corners, with one edge chewed. But when Raphael saw it, he froze as if struck in the chest. On the paper was a crayon drawing a man in a green prison uniform, a little girl with braided hair, and a dog standing between them, all three beneath a large orange sun. At the bottom, in a child's wobbly handwriting, it read, "Dad, Ellie, Cooper." Not far apart anymore. Joel picked up the drawing with gloved hands, ready to send it for inspection. But Raphael whispered, "I know this drawing style. Ellie's drawn like this since she was 6. She always made me taller than I really am. Because she said, 'Daddy is the big tree where me and Cooper hide from the rain.'" Raphael took the drawing in both hands, lifting it like a treasure. Cooper lay at his feet, round eyes looking up as if awaiting a reaction. Raphael didn't cry, but his eyes turned red. His voice trembled. Where did you get this? Who gave it to you? Does Ellie still remember me?" There was no answer. Only the crumpled drawing intact in its meaning, and a single bite mark like the signature of a loyal heart. From that day on, Raphael folded the drawing and placed it in his chest pocket. Every night before sleeping, he would touch it once, as though touching the one part of his heart that still lived beyond the bars. The day of Raphael's release came without ceremony or fanfare. At the Northern Penitentiary, there were no goodbyes, no formalities, just an ordinary morning draped in fog with the cold echo of footsteps along the corridor. Raphael packed his few belongings neatly, some worn clothes, a small notebook, and a crayon drawing, with a chewed-off corner carefully sealed in a plastic sleeve and tucked close to his chest. He brought with him no past to reclaim and nothing yet to call a future. The warden asked him one final question. "Is anyone coming to pick you up?" Raphael shook his head and looked straight ahead. "No need. I know who's waiting for me, and he's never missed a day." When the main gate opened, daylight poured in, and Raphael blinked. It had been years since he had seen sunlight that wasn't filtered through steel bars. He stepped forward, lighter than air. No car waited, no relatives, no one waved. Only a dirt road stretched ahead, leading to the edge of the woods. And at the end of it, a small brown figure sat still, its tail swaying gently with the breeze. Cooper. He didn't run, didn't jump. He simply rose, posture firm like a solemn salute, his eyes glowing with something not quite animal, something like memory. Raphael paused, and an old image flooded back the day Ellie was born, when he held her trembling in his arms and whispered one promise again and again, "Daddy promises he'll never leave you." And now that promise, after 5 silent years and countless separations, had been delivered right on time by a dog. Raphael whispered, "Good boy, Cooper. You kept your promise. Better than I did." He knelt down. Cooper stepped forward, not barking, not whining, just touching his nose to Raphael's unsteady hand, then stretching up to gently lick the place on Raphael's chest, where the drawing was hidden, as if he had traced the memory held there. No one took a picture. No journalist was there to document it. But in Cooper's eyes, that moment had already been stored ready all along, waiting for the day it would finally return to life. Raphael didn't ask where Cooper was going. He didn't make plans, didn't reach out, didn't try to find Ellie, because the only thing he trusted now was that Cooper knew the way. And in a world fractured by prison illness and separation, only love remembers the map. They passed through 3 towns, rested beneath old bridges, and shared halves of a roadside inn's bread roll. Then, one soft, sunlit afternoon, Cooper turned down a quiet, tree-lined path, once a public playground, now part of a center for children in difficult circumstances. Raphael hesitated slightly, recognizing the change, but Cooper did not. He tugged gently at Raphael's sleeve, then stopped behind a large tree, eyes fixed on the open play yard ahead. There a girl sat on the grass. No longer the child with pigtails, but a 9-year-old girl, taller. Now her face more defined, her gaze deeper, but there was still an old light in the way she quietly watched the sky. Cooper looked at Raphael. Raphael looked at the girl. No one spoke. Then the dog stepped back a few paces, and without a sound, spun 3 quick circles, sharp, exact, familiar, like an old dance rehearsed in silence. The girl paused. Her eyes didn't widen in fear or doubt. They blinked slowly, like a soul, just recognizing something it never truly lost. Cooper trotted over and lay at her feet, his tail wagging gently like a knock on the door of memory. She didn't cry. She simply reached down and placed her hand softly on his head, then tugged gently at the red leash draped across his neck. The collar wasn't old. It was new, freshly fastened with 2 words engraved on it, Cooper. Still knows the way. Raphael stepped out from the shadow of the tree. He said nothing. He didn't rush forward. He simply stood still, watching, as a piece of his heart was sewn back together by the hand of a child, now 2 years older, but who had never forgotten how to recognize the one she'd been waiting for. Raphael didn't rush forward. He stood still beneath the shade of the tree, watching the girl and Cooper, as if moving too quickly might shatter a dream still unfolding. Ellie lifted her head and looked at him. No surprise. No fear. Just quiet stillness, as though deep down she had always known this man would return. She didn't run to him. Her hand remained resting on Cooper's head, her grip tightening on the leash as if testing whether memory was still intact. Raphael took one cautious step forward. He didn't speak. He didn't dare, because if he did, his voice might break. And for those who have lost everything, silence is often the only thing left unbroken. Cooper shifted slightly, pressing his head gently against Raphael's leg, nudging him forward. At that moment, Ellie stood up. Ellie stood. She didn't say, "Daddy." She didn't say, "I missed you." There was no drama, no background music. Only a tiny step, slow, deliberate, as she wrapped her arms around Raphael's waist. She only reached his hip, and she leaned her cheek against his stomach, as if listening for the old heartbeat she remembered through his chest so many years ago. Raphael didn't return the hug right away. His hands trembled, unsure of where to go. Then he sank to his knees, kneeling before his daughter, pressing his forehead to hers, eyes closed tight. Cooper sat beside them, nudging Raphael's back with his nose, breathing in softly, as if confirming it's him. No mistake. No one cried. But in that moment, every word felt unnecessary. There was only a hand resting over a heart, a cheek pressed against a chest, and the synchronized rhythm of 3 lives once torn apart by fate beating together again. No one signed a certificate for this reunion. There was no court order, no legal guardianship, no journalist bearing witness. There was only a man who had once been a prisoner, a girl who had once been left behind, and a dog, the sole witness to everything no one ever saw. Joel, the old prison warden who was off duty that day, unexpectedly appeared at the park. He stood at a distance. He didn't intervene. He simply took a photo, a man kneeling, a child embracing him gently, and a dog lying still beneath the golden afternoon light. He saved the photo under the title, "Not Legal, but Real." Raphael didn't go to social services. He didn't report in. He didn't try to regain parental rights. He understood that some things, when they still require permission, are not yet deep enough. Instead, he found work as a gardener at a nearby nature reserve, a place where no one asked, "Where have you been?" In the mornings, he walked Ellie to her part-time learning center. In the afternoons, they picked up Cooper from the same patch of grass where he lay every day, as if by instinct, a habit no one had ever taught him. They didn't call each other by title. There were no urgent cries of "Dad" or "My child." But Ellie began packing breakfast for two each morning. Raphael quietly stitched the frayed leash Cooper had worn thin. And on the first night they shared a roof at a small roadside lodge, Ellie whispered, just as Raphael thought she had fallen asleep. "If I'm dreaming, this dream has lasted too long," he whispered back. "Do you know why?" She smiled softly, eyes still closed. "Because Cooper's really good at guarding dreams. He doesn't let anyone lose them. No record needs to be cleared. No bloodline needs to be proven. No signature is required to validate love. Because sometimes family doesn't begin with DNA, it begins with a memory no one is willing to forget. A child who didn't grow up with abundance. A father who didn't return to applause. And a dog who couldn't speak, but knew the way, knew how to wait, and knew exactly when to rise and speak on behalf of those who had been silent for far too long. Some kinds of love need no words. Some promises never have to be spoken. And some hearts are never truly lost to one another. They're simply learning how to find their way back. Tell me, have you ever waited for someone? And do you believe that sometimes the thing that holds us together has 4 legs and a heart that remembers the way? If this story touched something in you, feel free to stay. Maybe the next stories are waiting for you too. Subscribe if you'd like to walk alongside quiet kindness told without noise but with meaning.